Karzai's peace overtures to the Taliban, which Saleh described as a recipe for war.
And if they win through the script of democracy, they should be given a space to govern. But we should not make a deal. The deal is dangerous and it will lead us to another civil strife.
The fear here is the Afghan government is desperate to strike any deal with the Taliban and other groups, and they are doing so behind closed doors. Saleh wouldn't be more specific about the alleged deals, but said many Afghans are worried.
My message to President Karzai is very simple. The absolute majority of Afghans want a strong state. You have heard his speeches. When there are blasts in Afghanistan, civilians are killed. He does not attribute it to people who claim we have done it.
This is one of Amrullah Saleh's support base, the Panjshir Valley, the hometown and stronghold of Ahmad Shah Massoud, the assassinated leader of the Northern Alliance, the Tajik force that fought the Taliban. Amrullah Saleh was his close aide.
It's still not clear how much support Saleh has and whether it does come from across the ethnic divide, but he is optimistic.
So we will not remain grassroots forever. This is one day going to be a national level political movement.
National movement, that may be difficult. Ethnic groups vie for political power, which in the past has led to bloody conflicts. But Saleh says that is his goal, because there are two paths. Afghanistan could either become further polarized or united. Zana Khudr, AlJazeera, Panjshir Valley.
Here in the U.S., hundreds have packed the Capitol building in the state of Wisconsin in an ongoing budget standoff. Wisconsin's Governor, Scott Walker, wants union members to contribute more to healthcare and pensions, he says, to help close the state's fiscal gap. But it's his proposal to eliminate their collective bargaining rights that's ignited mass demonstrations. It's having a ripple effect nationwide. Mark Orchard reports.
Lines have been drawn in Wisconsin, a pioneer in recognizing public employees' rights to bargain through their unions. But now Governor Scott Walker and his fellow Republicans in control of the legislature intend to revoke some of those rights and some benefits. Giving up some parts of collective bargaining, say workers, is a concession they will not make.
This is not about money. It's never been about money. It's about the Republican Party trying to squash the Democrats, trying to squash union rights.
The unions see another threat to their survival in Walker's plan to force workers to vote every year on the union's power to collect dues.
And they can continue to voluntarily have those union dues that write the check out, give it to that union to make their case, but they shouldn't be forced to be a part of this if that's not what they want to do.
The Wisconsin showdown is the fiercest battle in a nationwide power struggle, as other recently elected Republican governors also confront their public sector workers. In Ohio, where Governor John Kasich has even antagonized police and firefighter unions, which had backed his election. He wants to take away their collective bargaining rights too.
Management has no control. They can't control their costs. And when they can't control their costs, they bankrupt our communities. We can't have that.
We must and we will shrink our government.
And in New Jersey, Republican Chris Christie and public school teachers are at each other's throats over pensions and health benefits.
Remember, this is the group that prayed for me to die. So, to say that we're not on the best terms at the moment probably would be an understatement.
But the unions face a challenge in the court of public opinion. Amid America's economic reverses, the union's favorability ratings are at an historic low, with one recent poll showing them even less popular than corporations. When the choice is between higher taxes or concessions from the unions, taxpayers appear for now to be placing a higher priority on their own wallets. Mark Orchard, Al Jazeera.
Let's bring you up to date now with our developing story on Al Jazeera. The son of the Libyan leader, Muammar Gaddafi, has warned that ongoing protests in the country could spark a civil war that would deplete Libya of its oil wealth. In a televised address to the nation, Saif al-Islam also said protesters have seized control of some of the country's military bases. This, as Al Jazeera has been told by a hospital official in the eastern city of Benghazi, that the death toll there has climbed to more than 300. Let's get some analysis of what was an extraordinary speech from Saif Gaddafi. Marwan Bashara joins us now. He's Al Jazeera's senior political analyst. He joins us from New York, where he's recording the latest edition of Al Jazeera's Empire program. We'll talk about the ramifications for Empire in a moment, Marwan, I'm sure. But what did you make of that speech?
Well, certainly it had all the tricks of the book. It sounded like a desperate speech by a desperate son of a dictator who's trying to basically put all the arguments, including incredible scare and blackmail, to the Libyan people to stand or to continue to stand on the sidelines, not join the uprising that we've seen the last 5-6 days in Libya. So much so that he actually threatened to turn Libya into a bloodbath. That is very dangerous coming from someone who doesn't even hold an official role in Libya. So in so many ways, this could be the beginning of a nightmare scenario for Libya if a desperate leader puts out his son on air in order to warn, to threaten his own people with bloodbath if they don't listen to the orders or to the diktats of a dictator.
Wasn't some of that speech also directed to those here in Washington too, as he talked about the possibility of chaos, of Islamic fundamentalism, of separatism and so forth? I'm sure a few ears pricked up here in Washington, D.C.
It's actually fascinating how he threatened the West with chaos in Libya and threatened the Libyans with Western intervention, because as he put it, this will turn into a decentralized country with various Islamist emirates that the West will not allow, and hence he threatened the Libyans with foreign interventions, and at the same time he threatened the West with chaos in Libya and disruption of oil. As I said, he used every single possible trick in the book, and that does sound less of a coherent argument for stability and order, and more of thuggery coming from someone, as I said, who fascinatingly, paradoxically, doesn't hold an official position except being a son of an autocrat.
An autocrat, though, who has in the past, though, stood up, at least from a non-aligned point of view, against what some have described as American imperialism and so forth. Does Gaddafi still have that title? Can he still call upon the resources of perhaps past strength against America to now rally anyone?
Well, honestly, Shihab, it's clear that the Obama administration is not about to interfere in Libya or anywhere else where popular uprisings are taking place. This would be, of course, quite a nightmare scenario for any foreign power to intervene in such a country. Quite a mess. You know, there is some truth, if you will, to what Gaddafi said, and this is the misfortune of 40 years of his father's rule, that he left the country to be still autonomous for the tribes that have been bribed by a rentier state that simply got oil money and bribed tribal leaders in such a way where the country remains to be a mess, and that's why it also in bad need of reform. It's in bad need of democracy. It's in bad need of a new beginning. But what Islamic Gaddafi promised is simply more of a nightmare scenario, a bloodbath for Libyans if they continue